Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show we talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm talking about the latest episode of Bull. A crazy episode. Basically, this is a sad, twisted episode in the sense of like one thing just kind of snowballed is what I'm trying to say. It just into this bigger thing because Chris gets jumped by these four guys in line because the dude who started the whole thing was drunk and he hit Chris. Chris was just telling him, hey, don't talk to my wife this way, because his wife was saying like, hey, you just cut in front of our line. We were waiting here. You were waiting. Sure, yes, dude, but your other three friends weren't, and they made a big deal of it. They hit Chris. They ganged up on Chris, pushed the dude fell, and now it turns into a whole situation of they ended up getting let go when a cop got involved, and now Chris is, in trouble for it. His lawyer was like, hey, plead guilty, you pay like a $75 fine. If you don't, you go to jail, because he doesn't have the $5,000 needed to pay off bail. But for him, it's like, I didn't do anything wrong. I just defended myself. And he had the ADA, Russo being like, he has a couple seconds, like a minute, and then this deal goes off the table. And it's kind of like, take this deal, because if you don't, you'll be waiting in jail. But if he goes to jail, he can't get a job, and he'll lose his job, which, he's struggling. Him and his wife are, they're already separated, but there's also like just money issues. And it's like, he can't miss out on payday because he's also got to pay child support. So like, there's a lot riding on this. And now later on, that guy dies, and now Chris is being charged with it. The whole thing is interesting because Benny came about this because the lawyer that was representing him at the time, Bennett, came to Benny for help because she was like, she feels responsible because she's like, I gave him that advice telling him nothing was going to happen, just the $75, but it's like now it's spiraled into this. And Benny goes to Bull being like, hey, it's not going to be anything complicated. We don't have to worry about it. But then Bull meets the ADA and realizes that dude's a douchebag, that he's just so intent on getting this case like going forward. He's not willing to kind of just drop the charges or whatever. It's like, you heard that my client was not guilty. You understand around the circumstances that he's not guilty, but that he was kind of forced in a situation where he had to plead guilty because the circumstances wouldn't allow him otherwise. They could, but they weren't favorable circumstances. It just wasn't fitting for his current circumstances that would have allowed him to be able to just like wait to have a to be in front of court. Because if he had went to court, they would have easily saw that he was not guilty. But it's just because he was in a rush. And it's something even Benny brings up later on. It's like no one did their job right in this particular situation is what it all comes down to. Because the problem is, like, Chris has got anger issues, and he's had a past where he's kind of gotten drunk a lot. But for him, it's like, that was before I got married. That was before I was a kid. That was kind of in the past. And so that got used against him. Hell, even in the episode, he gets in a fight at prison. Maybe someone started it. Maybe he did. But the fact of the matter is, it was going to be used against him because it's like, oh, it shows that he's prone to violence, or at the very least, fights happen around him. So it would have just went with what the ADA had said. And I thought it was kind of interesting the way Bull was kind of like, the guy was like, oh, I've got one dead body, I've got 3 witnesses, and I've got, his guilty plea. And so I have a feeling like, this is going to go in my favor. And Bull was kind of like, yeah, lucky for me, I don't care about your feelings or something like that. He said something snide like that and walks on. He's like, I'll see you in court. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But it is kind of sad because obviously Chris is kind of looking very angry. That's why I'm not going to fault him, because anyone under his circumstances would be angry. Like me as someone who I've talked about it before, I kind of have anger issues. As someone who has anger issues, I'm like, under that circumstances, any person would be pissed too, just because it's like life is falling apart. He's potentially looking for 20 years in jail, complications at home. His wife's divorcing him. He lost his job. He's potentially going to lose custody of his child too. It's just one thing after another. It just seems like things just keep falling further and further apart. Because the argument too, it's like that. Like I'm all over the place because this episode kind of makes you go, man, he did actually nothing wrong. It was circumstance. You even had one of the dudes try and be like, oh yeah, the guy who was crazy. He started all of this. I think he was a little drunk. It's like, you are such a garbage human being. You know what happened, yet you're sitting there lying. Like, I guess because for them, it's like, if they admitted that they were in the wrong, like what's happening to him could eventually come back to them, yeah, they would have got caught up on some charges and stuff like this, but you were literally helping send a man away to jail for 20 years. I guess their argument could be like, our friend died, so they're being a little vindictive about it, but it's like, your friend started it, all four of you ganged up on a dude, three of you are like holding him back while your friend is over there hitting him. It's like it just shows you how much of garbage human beings you were. And even the police officer, God, I'm sorry, I'm just all over the place. I think I'm talking a little too fast and it's kind of making my words slur a little bit. The officer in that situation is kind of what I was bringing up earlier, didn't handle the situation. He's like, oh, this is like kind of like an assault situation. I followed it by the book. But the fact of the matter is, no full investigation was really held. Like, they didn't investigate any other witnesses there. They didn't, get a second opinion for Chris when it came to this whole situation. It's actually sad too, because the lawyer Bennett, like to kind of make it so that the guilty plea kind of got thrown out, they ended up throwing Bennett under the bus, which, to be fair, I guess in the end, maybe it worked towards their advantage, but to me, it seemed like it was kind of all for nothing, because you threw her under the bus, which kind of like, it's such a shame, because she's such a young lawyer in this, and now she's getting reported to the bar, which, to be fair, it's something Benny himself said. It's like, that same advice under that circumstances, he, as well as plenty of people, would have done that under the same circumstances. Like, plenty of lawyers would have given Chris that same deal and option. But it's just kind of like, it's just unfair. And then there's a whole situation that kind of made things worse was his wife's testimony, because obviously she's going through struggles too. Like, obviously the babysitter kind of canceled at the last minute. Then like, she doesn't have minutes on her phone, so she couldn't contact anyone. And it's just kind of for her, it says, she's also dealing with everything related to her husband, his drinking, his anger issues. And it's just kind of like, it's all too much. And it's like, now she's struggling because without him around, there's no child support to help take care of the child. It's just a lot. Like, this episode is just a perfect situation of just everything going wrong and just kind of like the system and the world kind of beating you down. Now, I might say, like, because that's the biggest thing. Like, the system is not perfect. It is super flawed. There are many flaws to it. But, it like I said, it took the system being flawed with the right lineup of terrible things that happened that lead to this situation, But even his wife being like, oh, I told them I'd do anything, I'd lie to get you out of jail, and like that being on a phone call, which don't those typically tell you, like I've heard those before. It's like they tell you ahead of time, like, oh, those calls are being recorded, but maybe that's kind of the sly thing of this, of like, oh, not mentioning it ahead of time because they said something like that. Because even the wife was like, no, it's like, because I was like, how do you not know that? Because they say that at the beginning of every call, though, don't they? But maybe up to a certain point they stop doing that potentially. I don't know. Maybe she kind of beat past the messages and stuff like that, so she didn't really hear that or know that. So, I don't know. But like I said, Chris is angry with everything because for him, it's like his whole life is falling apart right in front of him. And he's like, you guys aren't doing anything. You're literally sitting here watching it happen to me. It's kind of like, Chris, you need to kind of calm down, which is like I said, you can 100% understand why he's under the feels the way that he does. Now, the interesting thing was that I don't think I've ever seen this come up in a lawyer show before. Maybe it has. Like when it comes to a courtroom show, I don't think it's ever seen it. But like they put the ADA on trial himself. And basically the little thing that Bull saw at the beginning of the episode, which he thought was kind of like, oh, a fantasy football thing. It's like, no, that's tallies. Basically, they're keeping track of their wins and stuff like that. This was his first major case, and convicting Chris, that victory would have been a big boost for him. Because even Bull at the beginning was kind of like, this will be a big move for you, so, you'll get a big promotion off of this. And that seems to be his main motivation. It's like, you knew everything you had was kind of flimsy, but you went forward with this situation because you were able to take advantage of it. It's like, oh, you already had a guilty plea, the man died. It's like you're taking advantage of this situation. And I even love it. Benny went hard on him, being like, the fact of the matter is, we as lawyers are supposed to do these things for justice. That's what we're seeking. So is that what we're doing here, justice? Or is this you just trying to get a promotion and better yourself? Because it's like, here's my client's initials, and he tried to pretend like that's not what it was. I was like, dude. And Benny's closing argument was amazing in the sense of like, what did my client actually do wrong? The only thing they have against him is the guilty verdict. It's like, yes, a man died, but how do we know it's from what happened with my client? Him hitting his head. Was it because of my client? Did he slip? Was he a little drunk? Whatever. The fact of the matter is, like, there was actually nothing brought against Chris. It's like, he did this. it's like his crime is that a guy died because of something. It's like, once again, it's not like they fully know whether, because who knows, he might have been drunk at the time, and maybe like during the struggle, maybe Chris did push him, but maybe he just kind of lost his balance because he was drunk and ended up falling unrelated to the push, that maybe he was taking a step back from it and felt, there's other circumstances to that whole situation. So I just like Benny kind of going hard into it like that. I even love Benny kind of being like, oh, what's that? And he's kind of pausing and he's like, I was waiting to actually hear what my client was guilty of. Oh, nothing? Yep, still nothing. It's just kind of like, here's an ambitious ADA trying to make something stick for something. It's like, my client did nothing wrong, and kind of pointed out the fact that the matter is, that's a circumstance that any one of us, it's not like my client is special, that's the circumstances, and he points to each of the jury, is like any one of you or me, anyone could have been in that exact same situation. And kind of going back to what I was bringing up earlier, it's like, it's Thanksgiving, like this is around Black Friday, and it's like, it's the holiday season, and it's like, no one wanted to do their job properly, even giving Chris that option and a second opinion, just because everyone was trying to get home quickly. He was trying to get home quickly because this was all about, ensuring everything. He tried to go down a path that would be beneficial to everyone, including his family. It would mean that he'd get back to work and be able to take care of his family like he wanted to. So that, it's, like I said, these extenuating circumstances behind this situation. And I love that whole thing of like, when it's all said and done, like everyone's kind of shocked because the jury came back super fast. Because even Bull had talked about it earlier, because like, Chris was like, what if, at their closing statement, the jury was kind of right then and there like, oh, not guilty. And Bull's like, that never happens. But we kind of got close to that this episode. And even Bull and Benny are looking at each other like, wow, that is crazy. And so luckily, when it's all said and done, even had Benny kind of doing an honorable thing of being like, the criminal system failed you in this instance, so you have, on behalf of the criminal system, I apologize. And it's like things between Chris and his wife, it seems like they're going to work on things, and obviously he's going to be there for his child. So there's kind of a happy ending in that regard too. So I'm glad that everything kind of worked out. I still kind of feel bad for Bennett. I hope things don't turn out too harshly for her, like I said, because she didn't blame them too much, because she understood what they were doing. If it meant helping Chris, I think she was kind of fine with things playing out the way they were, because she even apologized. She's like, I'm sorry that I gave you this raw deal, I kind of put you in this position, I even promised you that nothing would come about. But the moment she had said that, I was like, dude, something's super going to come about this. I didn't know it was going to be in that regard. I didn't know how it was going to come back to Chris, but I wasn't under the circumstances that it actually did. Maybe we'll actually get to see Bennett in the future like that, going forward. Like maybe we'll kind of see her collab with Tact or something like that. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But another interesting thing about this episode was Danny and Gabriel having dinner. And even I was thinking about it, I was like, they're really pushing the storyline. What are they planning to do with that? And then it's kind of like, oh man, a dude's lung collapses at the diner. It's like, oh my God, someone called is there a doctor? And then Gabriel comes up, does this thing, and ends up helping the dude. And Danny's like, yo, what was that? He's like, we gotta go, bounce. And Gabriel doesn't really give her an answer until she goes to his place. And it's kind of interesting because Gabriel kind of deflects a little bit, stuff like that. It's like, oh man, what? You're like, it's funny what he says. And I'm like, okay, what's going on there? Like it's so interesting that he's kind of like saying these like very sarcastic things. And it's, like I said, he's making jokes in the situation. I guess that's his way of handling it, because that's how he just like handles like, serious situations in this case. And then he's about to walk away, but he's kind of like, back in his country, he was like a surgeon. And it's like, but hiding that was because if he admits it, he'd end up going to jail. I'm wondering, I chalk that up to, I guess that's supposed to represent the fact is that he is here illegally, because he says, I'll get sent back to my country. That's why he was like, I don't want to be around answering too many questions, because the fact of the matter is, people want to get my information. So like, that's why, like, even though he was a surgeon, he came here and he's keeping such a low-key job, is because he doesn't want anyone to know that he's here illegally, and such a under-the-radar job, because a job as a doctor, even though he's a surgeon, it would mean that he'd kind of like put a big neon sign on himself. So he'd be under a lot of scrutiny and eyes. But, looking after like, an apartment like that, being kind of a landlord in that regard, not that big of an issue. No one pays attention to that, so he can kind of fly under the radar. So I'm very interested to see where that takes us. That might be the big focus of the next episode, might not be, I don't know. But that's definitely going to be something that goes forward. I mean, to be fair, like, you know, Danny being former FBI, I wonder will she try and pull any strings to help? I mean, to be fair, if she does anything, it could backfire to screw over Gabriel. That might be something related to the next case that the team ends up taking on. It's related to him, trying to help him under the circumstances. I don't know. Especially considering the fact is he was kind of Cable's landlord, plus Danny and him are kind of hitting it off. So maybe that will affect things. It's kind of interesting because Danny also told that story about her dad, you know, the thunderstorms and the rain, and being like, oh yeah, that's as safe as she's ever felt ever in her life. It makes me wonder, is that going to come back in some shape or form in that regard of like Gabriel makes her kind of feel safe like that, so she's going to like defend it. You know, I don't know. We'll kind of have to wait and see. Based on what I was seeing from the episode list that I was kind of looking at, it seems the next episode won't be until December 3rd, so like there's no episode next week or the week after next, but the week after that. So that's what I saw. That could be wrong, but it kind of makes sense considering the fact that it's like this episode is taking place around Thanksgiving holiday season, and it's like, oh yeah, Thanksgiving's like 2 weeks away. So, but really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. To the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, love life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.